All right, so I waited to make this video until I had at least a couple thousand miles on it, and I'm sitting about 2,600 miles on the Tacoma TRD off-road. This is a 24, so I just want to go over three things that I do like and three things that I don't like on this new 4th Gen Tacoma. And I'm gonna start with power. So for power, this is something I do like, and this is a very criticized thing on the new Tacoma, the new 4Runner, is the 2.4 liter with the 8-speed transmission. But to be honest, this 2.4 turbo is actually really quick. Like, you have no problem merging. I towed my camper, which is 23 feet, 4,000 pounds, no issues. And this is the non-hybrid version. So this thing, it's fantastic so far. So one of my likes out of the first three is power, and this 2.4 lives up to the name, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. I don't like the wiring everywhere. As far as this engine has a lot going on. If you look at it, there's just crap everywhere. But as far as drivability and power, it does what it's supposed to do, and I really do enjoy the 2.4 liter turbo engine in the new Tacoma. All right, so onto the interior. Now, this thing rides really good, and the interior is very comfortable. Everything is pretty much placed where you want it. As far as, you know, from the driver's seat to reaching over to your climate control to your screen. And it has a couple features of driving, from the crawl mode, tow mode, eco. There's a couple modes, and just daily driving it, combine it with the engine power, the off-road suspension, which is the Bilstein. It rides really good. So it's a comfortable daily driver. So that is my second one, is that I honestly like the way this thing drives around. It's a perfect daily driver. It doesn't beat you up, doesn't throw you all over the road. The factory wheel and tire setup, that's small, right? And they're not really aggressive, but they create a comfortable ride. So once you go over to a more aggressive tire like that style right there, obviously you're gonna have a little bit of a rougher ride. You're gonna have more of a big truck ride. And honestly, like, this thing's only lifted 2 inches or so, you know, and it's got 33s and all kinds of stuff on it, a big rooftop tent on it. And even comparing it stock to this Tacoma right here, I would say the Tacoma actually rides better. And the interior is nice, feels good. A lot of people complain about little things like the glove compartment moves or whatever. This thing doesn't bounce around when you drive around. You'd have to really be on like a forest road or something like that, or, you know, a really washed out road to have this thing banging around. Overall, the interior is pretty quiet. It doesn't make a lot of noise when you're driving. So overall, I like the comfort of the ride of this thing. All right, for number three goes with number one on my dislikes, because I like it and I don't like it at the same time. And that's going to be your infotainment center. So this is the smaller screen, which is still pretty big, but there are a couple things wrong with it that I haven't figured out. But I can tell you, if you use the app on your phone and you remote start your truck, sometimes you'll drive around and this thing won't even be on. You cannot turn it on. But if you shut it off, open the door, let all the power die, and then start it with the push button, everything will work fine. And as well with that, if you're using your CarPlay and all that stuff, if you remote start it, it won't connect to your CarPlay for some reason. But if you start it with this button right here, it'll connect to your CarPlay. So it's also a little buggy. It has freezed a couple times, but when it works really well. And really, I don't have too many complaints besides using the remote start. So that's my number three, is I really like the infotainment, but at the same time, if I remote start my car when it's hot or cold, I don't like it. So kind of mixed it up there. But yeah, overall, when it does work, I really like it. All right, so another thing is they redesigned the body on this thing, and I really like it. But there are some things with it that I don't like. And number two of my dislikes is, I'll open the back door and I'll just let you listen. Hopefully it comes through. You hear it? There's like a rattle. This thing kind of rattles around. There's rattles on the outside of this truck. You can't hear it on the inside, but if you're on the outside and you shut a door, you can hear something rattle throughout the back. And I don't know if that's the bed. Tell you, it's not the license plate. I made sure that's tight, but there's just little rattles on the outside of this thing. and it's only in the back. The front seems to be pretty good, no complaints there. But that's number 2 of what I don't like about this thing. All right, and for number 3, you see we're back at the engine. So I love the power of this thing. I love the way it drives. I like the transmission too. I like the way it tows, the whole 9. But this little 2.4 is a loud, clanky motor. And it almost reminds me of a diesel when you're driving this thing around. So none of these are deal breakers that I'm talking about, but when you buy a new truck or a new vehicle, you really don't expect to have something that's loud, noisy, and kind of clanky, especially when you're talking about the engine. So overall, I feel like my 3 things about this truck that I don't like are very small, but also when you buy a new truck, you shouldn't have any problems with it. You shouldn't have any issues, you know, especially stuff, little stupid stuff. Overall with the motor, I have had no mechanical problems. And like I said, I've only got like 2,600 miles on it, so time will tell on this. But so far, taking on road trips, towing the camper, very, very light trails, nothing crazy. So far, I really like this thing, and it's done everything I expected it to, and it's even better, honestly, owning it than just going out and looking at it. After I drove it for a little bit, the more and more I liked it, because I originally went to pick up a 23 Tacoma, drove it, and it was a dog. It reminded me a lot of the 4Runner, and we love the 4Runner. But after I drove this and I felt the power of driving around, it completely changed my whole thought process on buying one of these things. So those are my 3 likes and dislikes, and like I said, I tied 2 of those in together, and pretty much tied 2 likes and dislikes together with the motor, because the motor is great. It's just loud and clanky. The infotainment is great when it works, but if you use the app, then you have problems. So I hope this helps, and if you have any questions about the 24 Tacoma, please feel free to drop it below.